Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, I from group 3 will present about review of article in the field of chemistry education. Before I explain about my presentation, I will introduce my group. My name is Umi Nur Sofiah with my colleague Wayan Della Priyanti, Marcella Dwirianti, and Mutiara Tampak Edla. Reviews Journal of Chemistry Education. First, title of the journal. Second, why we choose this journal. Third, search. Fourth, component of a paper and review journal. The first, title of the journal is Development of Guided Inquiry-Based Worksheet on Colloidal Material for Chemistry Learning, Grade 11 in Senior High School. The second, why we choose this journal. The reason we choose this journal is that after we read it, we can see that how guided inquiry-based student worksheet on colloidal material for class 11 high school student can produce very high validation, very high practicality, very high effectiveness in the chemistry learning process.
Okay, next component of a paper and review journal. Title of journal, Development of Guided Inquiry-Based Worksheet on Colloidal Material for Chemistry Learning, Grade 11 in Senior High School. Name of journal, International Journal of Progressive Science and Technologies, Volume 14, Number 1 and page 13 until 19. Date of published 2019. Writer Oktiani Damayanti, Marwadi and Budi Octavia. Okay, next, background. Indicator must be received by students are classifying mixture into colloidal and suspension. Classifying the type of colloid based on the dispersive space and the dispersing medium. Describe the properties of colloid, Tyndall effect, Brownian motion, absorption, electric charge, electrophoresis, emulsion, and coagulation. Explain the colloid of lipobic and lyophilic and understand the process of making colloid by means of condensation and dispersion. Problem: in the learning process, students should be motivated to learn so they are interested in learning the material. Research purpose: to produce guided inquiry-based worksheet. They are tested for validity, practicality, and effectiveness so it can be used as teaching material. Next, research method. The type of research used is research and development, namely research used to produce certain product and test the effectiveness of this product. The development model used in this study is a 40. Research result and discussion. 1. Research result. Define stage, design stage, development stage, and dissemination stage. 2. Discussion. The validator give valid value because the guided inquiry beside worksheet developed by the author have met the criteria according to the assessment tools validation sheet. Okay, last, conclusion. Based on the research that has been done, it can be concluded that the guided inquiry-based worksheet on colloidal material for grade 11 students at the senior high school product has a very high category validity, very high practicality, and effective use in the learning process. Superiority. The title and discussion of the journal of interrelated and the language used is easy to understand. Deficiency. There is not footnote in the abstract. The title is not typed entirely in capital letters and is not in bold, and there are not attachments.
Next, the second journal. Title of the journal is Development of Student Worksheet based on Guided Inquiry with Class Activity and Laboratory in Thermochemistry Material. The reason we choose this journal is that after we read it, we can see that how guided inquiry-based student worksheet on thermochemistry material for grade 11 high school students can produce very high validation, very high practicality, very high effectiveness in the chemistry learning process. Component of a paper and review journal. Title of the journal is Development of Student Worksheet based on Guided Inquiry with Class Activity and Laboratory in Thermochemistry Material in Senior High School. The name of journal is International Conferences on Education, Social Science, and Technology. The journal on page 679 until 683. Date of publish of the journal on 2018, and the writer are Kiprah Tiawi, Umar Kalmar Nizar, and Mawardi. Background. Student worksheet is one form of teaching materials which consists of the sheets that should be done by students. When students answer questions on student worksheet, they must fulfill cognitive activity so that it can improve their understanding. Student worksheet-based guided inquiry can improve the student activity in the learning process. In general, student worksheet based on guided inquiry can improve learning outcomes, attitudes, and skill of students effectively. The problem of the journal are: first, the teaching materials used by the teachers cannot fully support the student to understanding chemistry lessons. Second, students are not accustomed to making sequential answers from low cognitive to high cognitive levels. Third, if students are left alone in answering questions to form concepts, then it will cause the misconception. And fourth, the teaching material doesn't have an illustration of the image to understand the material. The research purpose of the journal is to develop student worksheets so that students can understand the lessons. Develop student worksheets based guided inquiry that present various illustrations of image or models and key questions that guide students in finding concepts. The research method in this journal. First, sample. The sample is the student of Senior High School 5 Padang. The sampling technique that used is purposive sampling. The type of study is Educational Design Research or EDR, and the development model use the flow model. The flow model consisting three main stages. First, preliminary study. Second, prototyping stage, and third, assessment phase and or assessment. Next, the research result and discussion of this journal. Validation. Based on the analysis of student worksheet validation, it was concluded that student worksheets based on guided inquiry have validity with the average percentage of 82.1%. There is the chart of validation component with validity value. We can see on PowerPoint slide. Then, practicality. Based on the data that has been obtained, show that students' worksheet which is developed including very practical category with practical value of each is 81.25% for teacher response questionnaire and 85.1% for students response questionnaire. That is the chart of practicality by teacher and practicality by student with the value of practicality. Next, effectiveness. First, from student outcome. Based on result data, it can be concluded that there is an increase in process value with endgame value is 0.67 medium category, indicating that student worksheet use can be said to be effective. Next, students' activity. Based on the result of activity analysis of 84.4% with very effective category, This value indicates that the learning activities of learners have been effective for use. There is the chart of students' activity on first meeting, second meeting, third meeting, and fourth meeting with the value. Next, conclusion. Based on the study that has been done, namely of development of student worksheet-based guided inquiry with classroom and laboratory activities on thermochemical reasons grade 11 included in the valid, practical, and effective category used in the learning process. The superiority of the journal are: first, the words that used in the journal are easy to understand. Second, in the journal, explain clearly and completely from the introduction to the reference. Third, there is chart at result and discussion that make it easier for readers to find out the result of the research. The deficiency of the journal are: 1. In the title, it's not use capital for each word. 2. In the method, it's not explain which grade the sample population is in. 3. The stage of developing the model used are not presented in the result and discussion, but directly discuss about the validity, practicality, and effectiveness.
Okay, let me presentation the review journal 3. Title of the journal is Student Worksheet Development to Practice Critical Thinking Skill Using Blended Learning on Reaction Rate. Why we choose this journal? Because after we read it, we can find out that how a student worksheet based on critical thinking on the reaction rate material for class 11 high school. Students can produce very high validation, very high practicality, and very high activities in the chemistry learning process. This is a link of the journal. A review journal title Student Worksheet Development to Practice Critical Thinking Skill Using Blended Learning on Reaction Rate. Name of journal: International Journal of Chemistry Education Research, or IJCER. Volume and page: volume 5 in page 12 until 21. Date of publish: 20 April 2021. Writer: Intan Novitasaria and Berta Yonata. Date of review: 19 September 2021. Background: most learning in school still use the lecture method. One of the disadvantages of face-to-face learning only doesn't have much time to learning. When teachers are the only learning method, student critical thinking skill become less honed because students are not accustomed to thinking outside the context conveyed by the teachers and become passive in choosing additional learning sources outside of the learning research provided by the teachers. Reaction rate material is one of the chemistry methods in senior high school. Some factors influence the reaction rate by the concentration, temperature, surface area, and catalyst factors that affected the reaction rate relate to the collision theory. Every factor that is affected by reaction has some different explanation for each other, so the students should understand one by one. One of the problem of student difficulty that the material reaction rate is abstract, as said by Kirik and Yazdan, that reaction rate is one concept chemistry which is abstract. Problem: student worksheets that are circulating in the school today are still general in nature and mostly contain only material summaries. The material present is usually instance notes without a detailed explanation, and there are no instruction for using student worksheet for teacher and student. It will cause students to be less interested in exiting student worksheet and less sharpening their critical thinking skill. So, it is necessary to update the student worksheet with content that can guide students to think critically and the design of student worksheet that does not seem monotonous. Student worksheet use the syntax in the inquiry learning model, namely presenting phenomena, formulating problems, making hypotheses, collecting data, analyzing experimental data, and concluding what has been learned. The journal has research purpose. The research purpose to determine the feasibility of student worksheet to practice critical thinking skill using blended learning on reaction rate meter. Research method. This research is using research and development or R&D designed with the subject are second grade student. The instrument used which as the student worksheet, pretest, post-test sheet, student activity observation, and student response questionnaire. Research result. At the validity of the student worksheet on the concentration factor, surface area, temperature, and catalyst obtain the percentage respectively 89.37%, 87.55%, 87.97%, and 87.53%. Student activities obtaining a percentage of 90% and observation of student response by 91%. Student activity observation. Worksheet 1 and 2 were discussed at the first meeting and worksheet 3 and 4 at the second meeting. Each student meeting has carried out according to the stage in the guided inquiry learning model. Student worksheet can be said to be practical if the student activity 61%. Student response questionnaire. Observation of student response contains 10 questions related to student worksheet in practicing critical thinking skills. Questionnaire of student response has a percentage of 61%, so it can be said that the student worksheet developed are practical to be given to students. Effectivity. Tutorials were carried out to test the feasibility of the student worksheet in a practicing student critical thinking skill. The step of tutorial used the student worksheet to know the effectivity. The effectivity of student worksheet known by the score each student of pretest and post-test. Based on the result of the pretest and post-test, it can be seen that students have increased from the pretest to post-test score. Normalization of the gain from the scores obtained by 4 students in high category and 4 students in intermediate category. Aspects of critical thinking skill that are trained to students are inference, analysis, and explanation. Interpretation is a skill to understand the importance of various kind of producers or criteria. In the interference aspect, students formulate a problem formulation, determine the experimental variables, interpretation stage seen in the second stage of inquiry learning, which presents the problem of inquiry or inconsistent event. Conclusion. Based on the analysis and discussion, student worksheets can be declared feasible in they have validity. Practicality result with a percentage of 61% and the effectiveness of pretest post-test score and gain in category medium or high, so that the student worksheet using the blended learning strategy and guided inquiry model are appropriate for use in high schools. Superiority. The background of the problem used is a real problem. There is a flowchart and content research method that makes it easier for the reader to know the course of the research analysis carried out by the author. The results of the search are met with a bar chart, making it easier for readers to find out the result of the research, and explanation of the result is also presented briefly and clearly. Deficiency. This journal is incomplete in research result because it is not explained at which school the research was carried out, how many students filled out the questionnaire, the student used are not explained throughout the level of difficulty, and it is also not explained whatever the learning objectives are used. Okay guys, thank you for your attention and participation. I think enough. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.